Tim Findley. I pastor a church here in Louisville, Kingdom Fellowship Christian Life Center, and I get a chance to go around and talk to students, adults, and companies and deal with social justice. What I find more than anything else is that this is an extremely touchy and uncomfortable subject. It's uncomfortable for several different reasons. Some people feel like it's non-existent and it's just been dreamed up. Other people feel like it's not their issue, and other people have a lot of pent-up anger, and it causes a very combustible situation. One thing that I want to encourage everyone here, this is a safe place. This is somewhere I don't get easily offended, because I believe that if you're going to deal with something, it has to come out. It has to be dealt with. And I want to encourage everyone here, if you have a comment, to be completely honest with it. One of my favorite quotes is from a man. He was a poet, a social critic. He was a great thinker in this country. And he said, his name is James Baldwin. He says, "You cannot fix what you will not face. You cannot fix what you will not face." If we want to see the divide, not just in our country, but the divide in your school, in your class, then that means that there are going to be some things that if we're going to see it fixed, we're going to have to face it. Cool? In these conversations, they only work with participation. They only work by open and honest conversation. So I'm not going to do all the talking today, but I want to hear from you all. The first question that I want to ask is, how many people, just by show of hands, believe that racism exists in this country? Okay, cool. So I've been in a class like this, and I asked that same question, and I've been in a class where half raised their hand and the other half didn't. So I knew I was in a situation where that was going to turn really fun. So we all agree that racism exists. Let me hear just from a few people, what is your definition of racism? And just throw your hand up and do that, my bro. Treating someone bad because of the color of their skin. Good. Somebody else.
Thinking one race is superior to another.
Say it again.
Thinking one race is superior to another.
Thinking one race is superior to others. Somebody else? About the same? Everybody agree with those two? This is, and I didn't get a chance to write them all out, but this is the actual, my handwriting is like, not like y'all, but it's terrible. And that's racist whoever laughed. So, kidding. Racism, the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to another race or races. So in other words, the core of racism deals with superiority and inferiority. The core of racism believes that whatever group, whatever class, whatever race that you believe, you identify with, it's either more superior or inferior to another race. Since we all agree, I think that it's no surprise that racism absolutely positively exists not only in this country, but it exists in very important branches of this country. When it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to the judicial process, when it comes to education, racism is a part of many of these areas. If we don't acknowledge that, we can't have a conversation. So that is absolutely the part. But let me make this statement. I do not believe that the majority of Americans are racist. Do not believe it. Do I believe that a great portion of Americans have come up in racist environments and many embody racist sort of tendencies and mentality? Absolutely. What I believe that it's a much deeper conversation than just racist, not racist. There is something called implicit bias. I'm going to read this definition because it's very, very important that you understand what implicit bias is, and then I'm going to get on your nerves a little bit by getting you to admit some things. Is that cool? Implicit bias. It is the social cognition, refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. In other words, implicit bias is that subconscious sort of construct that comes to my mind when I see somebody. When you see a particular group, when you see a particular person, when you see a particular skin color, every person has some level of implicit bias. Everybody. You, your teacher, Pastor Tim, everywhere, implicit bias it's everywhere. And that is the area that I believe is not just racist, not racist, that there are certain stereotypes that are driving our country. How can I know this is being taped. This live stream and all that too?
No.
Okay, one of the great controversies with our new President-elect Donald Trump, was that there was an exhibited implicit bias in many of his actions. So again, that's why a certain group was absolutely against him and another group seemed to be all the way for. It is not an accident that 94% of African American women voted for Hillary. It is not an accident that 85% of black men voted for Hillary. That means that the overwhelming voters of color were completely against one candidate. And even from yesterday, the reason was because they did not feel comfortable with his social construct. Whether you believe that, whether you endorse that or not, it is prevalent and it's real, and that's the divide and that's the world that you all, and myself, but you all have been called to go out and lead in. So we got to deal with it. So when we talk about implicit bias, I'm going to give you a few examples, and I want you to be very honest, okay? Don't be in here faking. You know, I'm going to say what the preacher wants me to say. No, say what you, when you see me, if I'm in Walmart, you're walking down aisle 3. I don't know what's in aisle 3, but we're walking down aisle 3, and you see me, jeans, t-shirt, whatever the case may be. When you see me, what's the first thing you think about?
That you're a clean-cut gentleman.
Clean-cut gentleman.
Honestly, it's because of your haircut and the watch that you wear. And I hate to say it, but it is kind of appearance.
Okay, there's one. What about you? Going grocery shopping. Okay. When you see me, what do you think? Black man walking down the aisle. I see somebody talking. What do you see? You in front of the cereal, because he was there for cereal. Okay? Absolutely. I feel you. But what I'm saying is, I love all of that. And how many would say, if you saw me, maybe somebody in your family or you may get a little bit intimidated, depending on my actions?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Who? Thank you. He said his mother. His mother, if I'm in Walmart, I don't have on the suit, I got on a t-shirt, jeans, and I'm walking rather briskly, and I'm walking, she's right there, and I'm going to go to where the, maybe there's a shelf behind her, and I got to get to that shelf, and I'm not thinking anything wrong, but I'm walking like this. What's going to happen right there? Why? Why? Because your appearance, you're big. Because, what'd you say? Because you're what? Why'd you say that? Well, it's definitely a reality, but the truth is, like my sister just said, all I see is somebody that's like me. So either the reality is I'm black, and that's the first thing, or it's just another human being, kumbaya. Which one is it? Is it the reality that I'm black? Or is it the reality that I'm a human being?
Depends on what part of the country you're in.
Now that's a whole nother situation right there. Listen, y'all hear what he just said? That's good. You know what he said? It depends on what area of the country you're in. Which means that my geographic location will determine what I think and what I feel depending on when another type of person comes at me. Can I give you one of my implicit biases? We being real, right? Yeah. Implicit bias, subconscious. When I see my man back there, I've never met him before. I don't know him. He seems like a cool dude. When I see him, I think country music. I'm not a racist. That's my man's right there. I don't even, what's your name? Brandon. Brandon's cool people. I've never met him before, but I just think at a subconscious level, country music. When I see my dude right here, the first thing I saw was his hands. Got tattoos on his knuckles. So implicit bias is I'm sizing him up. Because when I see that, I'm thinking, okay, what is that? What's he about? I see his earrings. Implicit bias. When we don't face these things, it leads to what we're going to talk about here in a few moments, social injustices. We are all different individuals, but we're different and we have to embrace the difference. When you see her, if you didn't know, what's the first thing you think of?
Preppy.
Preppy. That's a good thing, right? What is preppy? What does that mean? That's like
Rich upper class.
upper class. Okay. Listen, let me get along. When you see your teacher, what do you think? Now remember, you got to come here tomorrow too. So you
wouldn't think anything, honestly.
You wouldn't think anything?
Nah, not really at all.
I mean, after taking this class, he's smart as hell, so there's that.
He's a Dallas fan?
I'm never really good.
You a Dallas fan? Wow, that's sad. That is sad. Social bias right there. I can't be his friend anymore. I can't.
We second in the...
Y'all are. Let me read you a few statistics. And the reason why we had to deal with that, racism and implicit bias, is because I want to give you, this is the truth. You talk about you can't fix what you will not face, and this is why I'm here today, is to acknowledge that there are branches in this world that operate with those two realities. And because many of those people that operate in those realities, it's caused a disparity amongst races in this country. The truth is, you have judges that may or may not operate with implicit bias. When they see someone in their courtroom, depending on what they look like, it may swing the way that they rule. This is not opinion. This is absolute fact that in this country, if I commit a crime and Mr. Holing commits the same crime, or my brother here commits the same crime, we are subject to get different rulings just based off of the bias. I don't go so far as to say racism, because again, that's a lock, stock kind of thing. That absolutely can be the case, but the one thing we cannot dispute is that that is going on right now. Well, Mr. Tim, I don't know about that. I'm gonna give you a few statistics, and these are current statistics. Black, American Indian, and Hispanic children are between 6 and 9 times more likely than white children to live in areas of concentrated poverty. I'm gonna say it again. Black, American Indian, Hispanic children are between 6 and 9 times more likely than white children to live in areas of concentrated poverty. I went through a program called Leadership Louisville, where they pick up, so they say the best and the brightest of the up-and-coming leaders in the city, and they send them through this 9-month program where we explore all the different facets of our government. We deal with housing, we deal with education, we deal with criminal justice reform, all of those things. When I went and visited all of these areas, do you know who was at the bottom of the barrel on each one?
Minority.
Black people. Everyone. When I went down and we talked to the housing authority, this is what we found out back in the 1940s, and that's why I'm saying this so you can understand this. And we're gonna deal with this in a much deeper way too. But when we went down to talk to the housing authority, they did something in the 40s and the 50s called herding, where they used different parts of the city and they forecasted what they wanted that part of the city to be in the next 20 years. So what they wanted the next point to be, depending on the socioeconomic level, they herded many of the poor minorities into certain areas. This is why at one time the west end of Louisville was a thriving area of affluent people. When the herding began, it started to herd poor minorities into one area, and anytime you take an oppressed class and put them in one area, similar to like a refugee camp, conditions begin to deteriorate. So now you all become the product of something that was put in place. The issues that we see in our city become the product of what was done well before you were even alive. So your job as young people, and I'm here, is to talk about those things, to face those things, and understand those things so that you can have a hand in fixing those things. So that's why, again, concentrated poverty. 80% of children of color are not reading at grade level. 80% of children of color are not reading at grade level. Black boys make up 6% of the American population, but are nearly half of the nation's murder victims. They make up 6% of the nation's population and are nearly half of the murder population, murder victim. A black boy born 25 years ago has only a 1 in 2 chance of being employed today, due not only to socioeconomic factors, but also to early death and over-incarceration, which means that 1 in 2, between those two, one of those brothers, by the statistics, is going to have a 1 in 2 chance to be employed, because the other one will either be incarcerated or dead. One of those, by statistics. Now, when you say, as all Americans, that that's their problem, that becomes the issue. Because as that's happening in this country, if we're ever going to fix certain things, it has to become everybody's problem. And that's what social justice is all about. I had a chance to do a panel a few weeks back, and I said this, and I want to say it to you all. If the only people that are fighting for the justice of all people are the people that are going to be affected by this particular system, it's never going to change. Which means that every person in this room has to be about fixing this system. Y'all feel me?
Yeah.
So let me ask you a few questions, and I want to hear, and I want you to be honest. How do you feel, and this is an open discussion, how do you all feel about the way things are right now?
My friend is Muslim, and she escaped war that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that she's pregnant and having her baby today. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
And that the baby's not going to be accepted into this world. It's sad.
And that's a reality we have to face. That as a Muslim born in the United States, that baby is possibly going to be subjected to some things that won't be fair. Somebody else. My brother.
Well, no, like you said, I think it's broken, and now it's maybe more broken because Trump's off. I think we the only people that can change it.
It's a good point. Good point. Somebody else. I feel like y'all got stuff to say, but you just like, man.
Feels like we're moving in the wrong direction, backwards.
Feels like we're moving in the wrong direction. Why do you say that?
Just the whole idea, every idea that they have is just so something we've already started to advance on, and then they're like, let's stop doing that. Environment-wise, equality-wise, racially, sexual orientation, whatever. It's all just like.
And I say this all the time, and I'm appreciative that you all are as forthcoming as you are. Nobody in this room should walk around with guilt because you're the color that you are. You didn't choose that. Nobody. Well, when I say guilt, I mean to my white brothers and sisters. You shouldn't walk around feeling bad because you're white. I've been in settings where it's almost as if people that do what I do want to make white people feel bad because you're white and heap all these things on you as if, you should have chosen to be black. Okay? I don't know how that works, but you are who you are. My responsibility in talking to you is to use where you are and what you are for the help and advancement of all people. Well, Pastor Tim, all you did was gave statistics about black people. And that's not fair. What about us? Because as a demographic and as a group, That's who's in trouble right now. And my man said something that was very true. We're going to have to come together and deal with this. So I want to hear from everybody. How do you feel about, when you talk about we're moving in the wrong direction, let's talk about black on black crime. What is the role of black on black crime in healing in this country? What is black on black crime? Black people killing other black people. Why is black on black crime such a major topic in racial reconciliation?
Because we're killing us and they're killing us. Like we're killing, black people are killing each other.
We're killing each other, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then they basically
Because they
saying,
feel
like,
white people.
I mean,
start to
if
feel like
they can kill each other, why
yeah.
can't I kill y'all too?
Okay. My man, you said something.
Yeah, I was gonna say what that was saying.
Well, let me ask you a question. Statistically, and again, you have to deal with the groups and the size of the groups and all of that. Do you think that more attention is put on black crime? Or do you think that it's the same with white on white crime as well?
Black on
No.
black.
Not even close.
Yes.
Why?
I've barely seen that black people killing white people one week. Or on Snapchat.
I need to ask a question.
They don't talk about it.
My man said it happens, but it's not talked about, and we're going somewhere. So, black on black crime becomes a major thing that if we're going to have change in this country, that's got to be fixed. Because that's what you see when you turn on WHAS, Wave 3, WDRB. You see black men killing other black men. In the city today, there may have been 4 murders. 2 in a predominantly black area, 2 in a predominantly white area. What you're going to see from the news is where?
Black.
Generally, which means that begins to inform your implicit bias. And you start thinking there is a major problem with black on black crime in this country. And I'm not saying it's not an issue. What I'm saying is there is a narrative oftentimes that becomes counterproductive to social justice. Because we got to get past that what we see on TV is not always the real thing. And the truth is, there are a whole lot of people who are being pushed to believe certain things just based off what they think is going on. Talk about black on black crime. There's something, when I was in college, we dealt with this and I found it fascinating. It's called respectability politics. Respectability politics is this. It means that in order for you to be treated as human, my behavior set is you got to act a certain way. I remember listening to a exchange on the radio, and the guy was like, if we're going to fix this racial divide and we're going to get these young black men to a place they need to go, the first thing we got to do, and this was in the context of police brutality, the first thing they got to do is pull their pants up. Pull their pants up. To not be killed and treated equal, they've got to pull their pants up. I hate SAG. I mean, do people even still SAG? They do? I mean, I hate it with a passion. When I see somebody sagging, I really want to take my hand and just smack the back of their neck as hard as I can until it folds. I want to physically, at times, assault, but that's me. But you know what? That is no reason to have to stereotype someone in terms of their life. They may die because of that. That is respectability politics. Whether you walk outside with sagging pants or no pants, you deserve to live. Now please wear pants when you walk outside. But the problem is, those are the things that are informing what's happening all around us. And the truth is, and I like you all, and I think you, was this the class that kind of got into it?
No, it was next.
I was like, how did y'all get into it? Y'all like all saying the same stuff. It's the next class, that's one of the ones I gotta get ready for. Okay, so I'm gonna really jab them. Like,
Yeah, can I stay in here for that?
the question becomes, what do you think is your responsibility in helping to fix this broken world system? I want to hear, and I want to hear from everybody. What do you think your responsibility is? I put you on the spot? Okay, I'll come back to you. After him, I'll come to you then.
Say the question.
What is your responsibility? You, not as a class, not as a group. What is your specific responsibility toward your fellow student, toward the people in your family? What can you be doing to help this very real issue? Or if you feel like there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do. I want you to be honest.
Right.
Nothing you can do? Okay. Not be another statistic. Somebody else. What can you do?
Probably teaching the next generation.
Say it again.
Probably teaching the next generation.
Teaching the next generation. Somebody else.
Lead by example.
Leading by example.
Calling people out on their racial prejudice.
Calling people out on their racial prejudice.
Understanding that everyone is the same, everyone is human.
Everyone's human. Everyone's the same.
Understand the difference between racism and bias.
Implicit bias? Who was paying attention? Somebody else. Right here. Mm-hmm. I thought you gave me the finger just now. I was like, oh man, get her out of here. Go.
I was thinking what she said, like just knowing that everyone's human.
My man said something that I think is interesting. He said, calling people out where you see an issue. How many think that that works?
It starts
Works for me.
Yeah, it starts an argument. It's just an argument.
It starts an argument. And the opposite of that would be to do what?
Embarrass them.
I say nothing.
Well, what I'm saying is to say nothing. So, if you see, let me ask you a question. There you go. If you're in here, let's say you have someone that you know you're friends with, but you see certain implicit biases, you see certain racist tendencies, you see someone that may not be treating other people with respect. How many think it's not going to do anything, just let it go? Raise your hand. Because y'all just said they ain't going to change nothing.
Exactly.
But I feel like it can't
And
just
I
be
think
one
now-
person though. Like if one person calls it out and no one else does anything, it's not gonna do anything. But if everyone's calling that same person out on the same issue, then eventually that person's gonna be like, all right, I need to change. This is
The question becomes what, and thank you. What happens when nobody in the group has the courage to do that?
Nothing's gonna change.
So nothing changes. So
People don't change that.
people don't change. Now imagine this. We're living in a world where if you have certain mindsets, you just got it, you ain't gonna change. Now imagine this across the board. We're talking about people that have these tendencies in different areas of government. You have kids that are being brought up in these certain households. We're saying if you have that, you got it. Which means that if you're thinking like that, there's no hope for you. I would be out of business if people didn't change. I couldn't do what I do. I have people that come into my church from all different walks of life. And my responsibility is not to fundamentally change them, but it's to open them up to a world that they may not understand. Let me go back to what my man was saying here. Go say it again.
They still don't change, even if you do open them up.
Sometimes people don't change.
Yeah.
But people in the world that we live in,
You still got the same old people.
What?
my man is saying people don't change. And what are you saying?
I've seen people change.
People change.
But they still have the same them in them.
What do you mean when you say the same them in them?
You can open them up to new things, but they still have the same mindset and thought process as they used to.
So are you saying, and I appreciate you being open because this is what we need. You're saying that if a person has, for instance, a bias and a stereotype type mentality towards another race of people, no matter what they're exposed to, they'll never change.
They can change and fake it, but...
But you don't think there'll ever be real change? And why do you think that? Is just because that's
Yes.
in them. I'll give you an example. I changed. My issue, and again, I appreciate that because what he's saying, it's his opinion, but it's an opinion that a lot of people share. And I'm not going to say it's right or wrong. What I'm going to say is we got to look at that because if people believe that it makes all of this for nothing. All of this is a waste of time and people won't change. I grew up in a household, Christian house, but a very, very, very pro-black house. I grew up in an area of the city that had implicit bias toward police, toward anything that wasn't black. And I grew up with a mentality where I absolutely distrusted all white people. All. And that distrust began to grow as I got older and saw certain injustices to where it almost became, I had an issue, everybody feel me? Where I was walking around like, y'all all out to get me. And when I say that, I meant it. Like, your moms, your dads, with the first chance you get, you're trying to hold me down. And that was my mindset. You know what happened? My world got opened up. And the more I grew and matured and learned, the more I found out that that is not the case. What I found out was what was in my mind was not reality. So there is the possibility of change, but not everybody does change. We have to hope and work toward change. If that were the case, there's no reason for me to be here today. No, this is a waste. If that's the case, this world is going to continue to spiral from a racial standpoint, and nothing's going to change. We don't believe that. We can't believe that. But I appreciate that. What were you saying, my sister?
I was going to add on to what he said. Like, if you say that somebody's going to stay in their same mindset, then what's the point in us even coming to school? Because I know I come to school and I learn new things about everybody every single day. And if I stayed with the same mindset that I was born with, obviously I didn't know anything. So I came to school for a reason.
Let me go back here. Let me go back to here though. Let me go back to this. If you see certain things in a person here at school, I want to make sure I'm hearing this right. Y'all are saying it is what it is.
Nope.
We ain't gonna. You gonna call them out? Who ain't gonna call them out? Who's not gonna call them? If you see, you're not gonna call them out. Who else? Who is not gonna call them out? Listen. If you see a young lady with a, what do they call those, hijab?
Yeah.
She's walking around here, and given what you've seen on the news, given what you've seen and heard around the area, and you see her as a potential threat, she might have a bomb. Seriously, now listen to what I'm saying. She might be an issue. So, based on what you've seen, you start to say different things to her. I hope you ain't got no bomb today. Listen, you're making a joke.
But it's reality.
You're making light of it. She is offended by it, and it hurts, but she don't say nothing. I'm saying this thing to her. If you know me, and you see me do that, what is going to be your words to me?
You're ignorant.
Hold on. Now you see how when I asked who was going to call somebody out, y'all was like, well, I didn't even know.
You just have to break it down.
I was gonna laugh like
You said who
no,
won't
I'm
say
gonna laugh.
that?
So you're going to say ignorant. You're going to say messed up. You're going to cuss me out. Now let me ask you a question. Listen, there's going to be a verbal attack towards me. I'll be lucky, as you just said, not to have a physical attack. And let me ask you a question. What of that is going to help change me? By you cussing me out, what's going to change about it? You know what's going to happen? I'm going to be like, well, okay, you too. And then you know what's going to happen? There's going to be an issue there. So my question is, how, number one, are you going to help change that person? But number two, why do you feel the need to fight ignorance with that level of attack? Is it because you're angry about what they're doing? Or is it because I want to help to change your mind?
So
that, and then you get into a conversation with the next person for saying something to you, I'm pretty sure the next time you see that girl, you probably wouldn't say that again because you had already got into a conversation with the next person.
It depends on the type of person I am.
Yeah.
If I'm one of them people to where I'm like,
Don't you?
what, you know, who's gonna check me? Who? I say what I want to say. There's people out here that are like that. You have people in your classes who they're contrary. They don't care who says what. I'm gonna say what I want to say. The problem is, and this is what I need everybody in this room to understand. Everybody, hear me. Everybody, chill out and hear me. Everybody. You aren't going to change anything by losing control.
It's gonna make me feel better though.
Again, it's going to make you feel better in the long run. I mean, in the short term. But the question is, are you doing it to help the young lady? Are you doing it so that they get educated? Or are you doing it so you feel good?
Why don't the girls gonna feel the girls gonna be happy because somebody stood up for it?
Hold on. This person is walking around doing something that is racially, culturally offensive to another group. Is your thought process to merely help the girl? Listen, I'm gonna give you options. Help the girl, help you, or try to educate and help the person that's doing it.
All three.
All three.
I'm gonna put all of that in that one.
That's why, like, when it comes to like black people, I hate like violent protests. I think it's just a waste of time and like effort because all you're doing is getting more black people locked up and giving them a reason to put people away and be more aggressive towards us. So I don't feel the need, like, why do we do that? You know, like that's just like hurting ourselves. Not good.
So how much time I got?
I mean, yeah, it's anger.
Okay, good.
It's not. Right.
So, but here's the thing though. Here's the thing. And I think we've hit something that I see with young people. I have been involved in many protests. I've been involved in many different things. I was just in one at 28th and Broadway for a recent killing that we had. And I was one of the main speakers. Here's my question. And it's so many. I got to get back to this and I'm going to come to what you were saying. Part of the issue that I see with people who are very, very emotional about a subject but don't think it through is that we react so fast without any thought process. I heard somebody say, the person that did this to the, I'm just using your example for today. So, you've been an example for like 30 minutes too, sorry, but we can move. You want to be the example? No? Okay, we'll come back to you. The problem is, if I'm doing this, and I've heard, I cuss him out, he'd be lucky to even make it out of school. All I've done is made the issue get bigger. Now, I feel better. You know why? Because I got to show and vent that, nah, you ain't going to do that. But what have I really helped in the long run? Nothing is going to be changed in the mind of an individual if it results. Then you're absolutely right. If the tactic that I'm taking is either a verbal assault or a physical assault, nothing's going to change in this context. What I've got to do is deal with the person. Why are you coming to her like that? What makes you think these things? Believe it or not, and I know that you all are younger, but you are smart. Here's the thing. You got to learn how to have conversation. I know that seems like an absolutely foreign sort of thing for a lot of people, but what is going to turn this thing around are thinking, well-informed young people that can have conversation without wearing their feelings on their sleeve. Now, when you talk about protest, and I'm going to link that with, somebody said the group has got to do it. What happens when the group isn't willing to confront injustice? Does it just go on? Or is there somebody in the group that says, you know what? It's got to happen regardless. How many have to have a group? How many have to have a group to confront injustice? How many say, I've got enough presence and I've got enough confidence that if I see something, I can confront it right there? The question becomes, how do you confront it?
I always get mad about it.
You get mad about it. I do too. I get mad at times.
Like, I used to be peaceful with stuff like that, but after seeing it for so long, my anger's been built up, and I'm just ready to crack some skulls, so.
Well, cracking skulls is not going to help. But let me ask you a question though. How do you get emotional when you see certain things? What do you do?
I get angry.
Like how?
Yeah. Not necessarily.
I've heard like 4 people cussing people out. Is that y'all's like next thing to do is like, I'm cussing you out. I'm gonna cuss you.
Like I keep repeating myself and I keep like getting mad and mad every time.
Why are you getting mad?
Because they keep doing it over and over. It's like, why do you keep messing with the same person? It's just like pointless.
Do you know that a part of social justice is bullying too?
Like,
Y'all know that? And the reason why I talk about the group versus individual, because it's not just a black-white thing. Social injustices is also a part of bullying. Now, in bullying, you do see racial components, but it's not always the deal. There are people statistically in this room that would be qualified as or be categorized as those who are being bullied. The problem with bullying is there are too many people that watch it happen but never do anything about it. You know what I'm saying? Statistically, in a room like this of about 20, 30 people, by statistics, there's at least 5 to 6 people in here that are being subjected to daily bullying. They're not being bullied in isolation. They're being bullied in a group, and people see it. This is a generation where it has to either be called out, it has to be dealt with, and it has to be done by peers and not just teachers.
But like bullying, when it comes to bullying, like racism, like black versus white, I think people don't step in because they don't see it changing. Like, they don't see like the vision and it going away. So they're like, what's the point of me wasting my time by trying to say something that's going to continue anyway?
Which goes back to a point that my man here raised, that if you don't feel like that there can be any change, you're going to say, what's the use? Why even say anything? Why do anything? And that is, again, what's happening in the country right now. The reason why, if I can just get political for a few seconds, the reason why one group overwhelmingly elected a person that another group was absolutely offended by was because for everything that this one group said, hey, that is not right, we don't like that. Hey, that is not cool. Hey, that you can't say that. Another group, by and large, said, hey guys, we hear that, but what can you do? This is not Mr. Tim's opinion. That's by the numbers. What I'm saying is what is done is what's done. We cannot continue to go down the road saying, you know what, that is y'all's problem. Social justice will not happen if everything is, that's y'all's problem. That's y'all's West End issue. That's y'all's East End issue. That's black folk problem. That's white folks problem. It has to be an understanding that it is our issue. And nothing is going to get fixed if all we do is bring up these issues and everybody gets mad. There are going to be emotions with this. But there has to be conscious thought on how can we fix this? How can we deal with this? You got to learn how to deal with that because guess what? You're going into a world where it's already the case. It's already happening. So what can you do? What can you do to fix it, my man?
Try to educate.
Just be the change you want to see.
Example. I like that. Now you hear that and you think, that's a good slogan. Do you know how powerful that is? The best way to change certain things is first for you to realize facing what you want to fix and you actually exemplifying that. Who haven't I talked to? Sis. How can we fix it? What's the road to fixing this? We'll come back to you. My sister over here. How do we fix this? What can you do to fix it? Lead people. That's a good one. Who are you leading?
The ignorant.
people are like,
Do you think everybody's ignorant?
A lot of people.
Everybody.
You just cuss people out and now you call them niggas too. Praying for you. Lord have mercy. My brother. Oh, you were saying hallelujah. Okay. My brother.
Don't put out a negative perception of yourself.
Don't put out a negative perception of yourself. What's a negative perception of yourself? Explain that.
I'm walking through the hallway, cussing, sagging my pants. I mean, doing all these negative. Somebody's gonna look at my whole race as a whole.
Yeah, it's negative stereotypes.
What do you do when you turn on the television and all that you see is a negative stereotype?
Turn it off.
It puts your mind on a negative, perception of the whole race as a whole.
What do you do when you turn on Facebook and the majority of videos that are being shared are fight videos? World Star. What happens? I'm with you. The negative perception. This is what we're in. You know where it starts? Not supporting things that are leading to the divide. It's a much grander, bigger issue than any of us understand, but it has to start with an individual. And the truth is, whether we know it or not, we are supporting many of the things that are causing the bias. We love it. It's in our music. It's in our videos. It's in how we carry ourselves. It's in how we speak to one another.
I just feel like people talk about the problems all day long,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't realize that how does that fix anything by sitting on social media and talking about it all day long? That helps nothing at all. Unless you're trying to fix it, like just stop talking about it and actually fix it, because it's not going to help at all except just divide us even more.
I agree with you in part. This is what I believe in, and I think she makes a very good point. She said that it seems like people talk about it all day long, and it's just causing the divide even more. Here's the issue, though. We are at a great place now to where we're finally having the dialogue. For a long time, you couldn't even have the dialogue. But I agree with you that if all you're going to do is talk and do nothing, it's not going to eventually help anything. But I will say, where I somewhat disagree, is that the conversation has to happen. Believe it or not, this conversation today is powerful. You know why? Because you can never leave here and say, I didn't know. You can't leave here today and say, I don't know what implicit bias is. That is the conversation. But guess what? To your point, when you leave, now you got to do something. And not cussing folk out. Not fighting folk. That ain't changing nothing. But when you see certain things, it's calling it out in an informed, intelligent way. It may be just deciding not to share the fight video. It may be standing up for a fellow student who you see is getting bullied.
Well, I think the problem is everybody gets defensive instead of actually. We appreciate
That's a good one. Appreciate you. Hey, don't cuss nobody out, please. If you got that, it's in your heart right now.